Hello everybody, it's Krista here with Blooms and Brushstrokes. Welcome to my channel. Today we have something fun and exciting going on. So first of all, I would like to say a special welcome to all of our new viewers, and to those of you that are returning, thank you so much for continuing to support my channel, for watching the YouTube videos and tutorials, for commenting, for asking questions, and for engaging and for sharing your artwork on social media as well. I really appreciate that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Today we have something fun and exciting. So a few weeks ago, Fuumuui, a watercolor art supply company, reached out to me and asked if I would want to collaborate and do a collaboration with them with using some of their product. And this is the very first time that I have been approached to do this. Actually, there was another time, but I didn't accept the other offer. I just didn't think that the product really aligned with what I do. So anyways, I was reached out, Fuumuui had reached out to me to ask if I would be interested in doing a collaboration. And so I agreed. First of all, they asked me if I would like to sample some of their watercolor brushes. And of course, I absolutely would have done that. But online, I kept seeing this Fuumuui, the muted watercolor opaque paints come up. And so I said, I would absolutely do the watercolor brushes. However, if they had a sample set of these muted paints to send along, I would love to try it with the paints. Anyways, they are only able to do one or the other, paintbrushes or the paint. And so they were able to pull through with these paints. So these are the semi-solid watercolor, opaque watercolor paints from Fuumuui. And so they came this week and I thought, well, I'm going to do a tutorial plus kind of a bit of a review. I did swatch them out already and I did play around with them a little bit. And so I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about them before I get going. And I did write a couple things down before I get started because I didn't want to forget. Anyways, so a couple things to start off with. If you enjoy these paints, there is a 10% off code that you guys can, if you guys are interested, I will give you guys the website and the code. You guys can go to fuumuui.com/discount/blooms and use the code blooms to get 10% off this specific set. But you could give it a try and see if you could get it with other things. I'm not too sure. Anyways, the other thing that I wanted to say about these paints is that they are semi-solid. They are opaque, so they have really great coverage. They are not tested for light fastness. So light fastness is the ability for a watercolor to maintain its color in UV light. So that would be over time. How does your paint stand up over time? Not necessarily in direct sunlight, but of course with UV ray lights. And so these are not tested for that. They say they have great light fastness, but there is no standard rate testing. There is a specific standard for light fastness that I can't remember off the top of my head. However, they are not tested for that. So these would be considered, you know, a student grade or a hobby grade watercolor palette. For me, I love that because I am a hobby watercolor artist. I enjoy trying new fun things, exploring new colors, all that kind of stuff. So for me, this is fine. Fine quality to use just for that. So I am going to do a painting with them today and show you guys how they work out. So we're going to do a painting of some crocuses because these have some really beautiful muted red tones, purple tones. They have a mix of gray in all of them and they kind of have light to dark in each color. So let's get cracking. Let's open this up together. As I said, I've already swatched them out. So let's have a look and then let's get to the painting, you guys. All right, everybody. So this is the set right here. The opaque solid watercolor. They're semi-solid, I will say that. And so this is the box. Huge palette. comes in a huge palette. So this is the box that it comes in. And as you can see from the outside here, you know, these are the reds here, and then they go into greens and blues and, you know, purples and all that. So this is the set there. Whoop. And here we have it opened up. So they are beautiful. They look gorgeous. And as I said, I've swatched them. So we've got red, gray 1, red, gray 2, red, gray 3. So it goes from lightest to darkest. Brown, gray 1, brown, gray 2, brown, gray 3, green, gray, blue grays, yellow grays, warm grays, purple grays, and cool grays. And these are just in the order they are in right here. So as you can see, the colors on here are absolutely beautiful, and I really, really do love them. I think they are going to create some really, really gorgeous paintings. So again, with this, as I've said before, there is no light fastness rating. So use these at your discretion if you are painting something. But yeah, this is them. And so this is like a really big palette. Lots of these lots of paints like this probably could come in a bit of a smaller container. However, you know, because these paints, as you can see, they're not full right to the top. So, I mean, the size of the palette is probably a bit huge, but anyways, that's just off the top of my head. Doesn't matter. It's kind of nice to work with a palette that's that big. So before we get started, I'm going to activate all of the paints by spraying them down. These activate very quickly. And so the one thing I noticed when I was sampling them was that it was hard for me to really gauge how much paint, like when you put your brush in, you're picking up a lot of paint. So you are going to want to have your little blotting paper beside you, because then you can kind of see what you got going on there for the amount of paint on your brush, because they are very opaque, and so a little paint goes a very long way. Oopsie daisy. So I'm going to get my little tray out here. I am using something a bit different today. So I am going to use the Stonehenge, because I want to give these a fair shot. I'm using the Stonehenge cold pressed watercolor paper block. This is the 7 by 10 inch, and I did get this off Amazon. So for any of you guys that want to know, it's a block. It's glued down, so you don't have to tape it down. It's a higher quality paper. And so I want to use that because I want to give these paints a fair shot. So I wanted to use better paper. So I'm going to move my paints over here. I'm just trying to get organized and set up, because I couldn't really set up before I got going because I wanted to show you guys the paint. So we're getting set up here. I am going to use my number 8 Aqua Elite Princeton round brush, as I do use a lot. We are going to use the Micron, not number 3, that's too big, a Micron 01 Archival Ink Pen. Today we are going to use some of the Winsor & Newton gold metallic ink. You've got to shake these up really good, but that's the gold ink there. We're going to use that one today instead of the Speedball and instead of the silver. So we're going to use that to finish off some details. And I think that's all of our supplies that we're going to use today. So get yourself all set up and ready to go, and I'm going to get ready and we will get cracking on this painting, you guys. We are all ready to go here. So I've got my swatches out in front. I will do my best to tell you exactly what I'm using at what time and where, and we will get going. So we are going to use the same technique, the dot technique that I have used in the past to recreate or to create this painting of some crocuses. And right now here in Saskatchewan, the crocuses are blooming like crazy. We've had a bit of a late spring, so it is a bit later in the season for us, but they are blooming here. So we're going to paint that. And typically here in Saskatchewan, our crocuses are purple. So we're going to be using purple grays, some cool grays, some red grays, some more. So we're going to use a little bit of everything, and we're going to get into some of the greenery, and we are going to use some of these green grays, yellow grays. So we're going to use a little bit of everything. We're going to use a little bit of everything in this painting so that we can have a good idea of how it all works. And just so you know, full disclaimer is that I haven't done a practice painting on a good piece of watercolor paper yet. So we are doing this together. It's the first time. I did do a couple samples. I will show you guys those actually before we get going, just so you guys can see. I was playing around with some of the color. So the blend of them, it blends pretty good for the most part. But, you know, in some cases it was just a little bit splotchy. That could be from too much water, not enough water, different amounts of pigment, and also could be the quality of the paper in general. So just so you guys know, I did kind of tinker around a little bit last night just to see how much water and whatnot I needed. This is just for fun. And as you guys can practice before you get painting, do the same thing. Hi, buddy. We have a visitor today. He was outside, but he just came inside. But we are going to play along with a little bit of all these, lots of the purple grays. So purple gray 1, 2, and 3, the warm grays, the cool grays, the blue grays, the red grays. And then for the grassy parts, we will do the green grays and yellow grays and all that kind of stuff. So we will play around a little bit with as much as we can on here to get a good idea of what we're doing. And typically what I've done in the past with doing the dot style of painting is that I will work on a whole entire flower at once. But because of the intense saturation of pigment in the paints, I will be working 1 or 2 petals at a time to avoid getting those dots staining the paper. So it'll be a little bit different, but that's just what we have to do when we're dealing with a different quality of paper, a higher pigment concentration of paint. So that's what we're going to do. We'll start off on this side here, on this far side. So we're going to work with the purple grays, the 1, 2, and 3 for this one. So we're going to start off with the purple gray 3 at the base where it's going to be deeper. We'll work with these 2 over here, and we'll put a little bit of that purple gray 2 in there and a purple gray 1. So we're working on these 2 petals. We're going to get lots of water on the brush and clean it off in between each. So we're going to go up on the side of this one very first. And put in our petal. We're going to go up the middle one next. For those 2. For these ones over here, we're going to do a little bit of the dark purple right close to the center because that'll be darker, and then we'll do the purple gray number 2. Clean off your brush, and we want to leave quite a bit of that white, that negative space in there. Just like that. We'll go with our petals over on this side. So we're going to do 2 of the dark purple, and we'll go in with just that purple gray number 1. Clean off your brush really good. You can already see how intense that pigment is. It really is. There is a lot in it. You know, I'm hardly using any. So a little goes a long way, unless you want to do something that's more, that is more opaque. The whole picture. Something more like a gouache, I think is how you pronounce that. I've never used it myself, but that is more of a solid type of watercolor paint, I would say. I've never used it. It's just not my style, but I do know some artists that do use that. So I'm just going to go in and drop some of this dark in here while it's still wet, close to the center where there would be much more gray. And we're just going to pop that in there. Just like so. Awesome. I love that. I think that looks really good. The colors are really beautiful. So we're going to move on to this next one here, and we're going to actually add some blue into that one. So we're going to use the blue grays with the purples and maybe some warm grays, not sure. So we're going to start off with this petal on the one side here. And we're going to drop in some of that purple gray number 3 at the base here. And we're going to use blue gray number 3 as well, close to the base. And then we're going to go in with some warm gray 1. Let's try it out. I mean, we're having fun here, so maybe 1 dot of the purple gray 1, which is this one. Sorry guys, I had that covered up. So we're working on this far petal. Clean off your brush in between. Really good, lots of water on there, and let's go for it. Ooh, yeah, awesome. With those dots, if you need to get in there and go and kind of smudge them out, if they're still in there, clean your brush off, dry your brush off, go in and give them a little wiggle, and that'll remove the look of that dot. So, ooh, that looks really pretty. I'm gonna use a little bit of that blue gray number 2, and I'm just gonna go and put a bit of that in there while it's still wet. I just want to see a bit more of that. Okay, so now we're going to go work on this one up here, and we're just going to use a little bit of blue gray number 1. We're going to put 2 dots, and we're going to go up, and we just want to have a little hint of color up there. We don't want a lot. We just want it to be just a bit. I'm going to go in there and get a little bit more on my brush. I think they're kind of starting to dry up a bit. Okay, we'll work on this side one here. So again, we're going to go in with that purple gray number 3. Blue gray number 3, and we'll do cool gray number 1 at the top. Clean off your brush, lots of water on it, and let's drop down and pull it right up. Excellent. So those are pretty fun. As you can see, a little goes a long way. The colors, you know, they blend pretty good, but they're not like high intense blending or blooming, which is okay. It's just, you'll learn to work with them a little bit differently than you would some other watercolor paints. These are a bit different for sure. Something I've never really worked with. So we're going to go in with this last one. We're going to put down the dark purple gray number 3. We're going to go in with the blue gray number 2, the purple gray number 1 at the top. Clean your brush off, and let's go for it. So we're going to start at the bottom, pulling it up, and we're going to come clean our brush off again, come up, drag it down. So I'm going to go in with that gray blue number 3 and drop that down here in the center. So this paper, it's better quality, and it absorbs a lot of that paint fairly quickly. So you want to be working with quite a bit of water. If you're not doing this dot technique, I would almost say you might want to do wet on wet. So wet paper, wet paint. All right, let's work on our last one over here. So this one we're going to work on it with the purple grays and some red gray, just to sample out something else. So we're going to go in with some of that. I am going to work this one all at once, this whole flower, because it's not a very big flower. So I'm going to do this one all at once as opposed to petal to petal. So we're going to drop down 1, 2, 3 dots of that, 3 dots of the dark, or the purple gray number 3. I keep saying dark. Then we're going to go into the red gray number 2. So get quite a bit of water on your brush. And we're going to go and plop those down in there. Clean brush, lots of water. Let's go for it. Clean your brush between each petal. I'm going to put 1 purple, dark purple down here. We're going to go up. Clean off your brush. Clean off your brush. And there's that. All right, so we're going to drag a little bit of this down. We'll take some of that dark purple or the purple grade 3. Oh gosh, I'll never get that straight. The purple grade 3. Plunk it down here, a little bit in here. So those are our crocuses. Those parts are all done. So we're going to get in and work the grass part a little at the bottom here. Okay, so typically a crocus will grow on a, a dry hill, grassy area. So we are going to throw in a couple, because we have these brown grays on here, we will toss in a couple rocks. And we got some. So I'm just going to go and kind of freehand in a couple, just little, using the number 3 brown gray, just a couple. Whoa. As you can see, woof. I'm going to pick up some of that. So just to give that in the background there. And we're going to go plop in some grass now because they grow on these grassy hills in the springtime. And so some of the grass is still brown, some of it's green. So we are going to use the green grays over here, the green gray 1, 2, and 3, the yellow gray 1, 2, and 3. And we've used the brown gray 3 for the stones. And so we're just going to go in and put in some loose grass. And I'm not going to use the dot technique for this. I'm just going to go and just slap down. So I'm going to get a little bit of pigment on the tip of my brush. And I'm just going to go in. We're starting with our lightest. And we're pushing down and pulling up. So we're using the green gray 1. A little color on the tip of my brush. And we're going to push down and pull up. And the harder we push down, the wider our grass will get. You can go put a few of them down in there. So then I'm going to move on to the green gray number 2. And we're just going to kind of work our way through these. Put a few of those in. They can go over top the stones. They can go over top of each other. Okay, green gray number 3. So that's just what we're working on. A tiny little bit on the tip of your brush. A wet brush, a little tip of paint on there. We don't want the grass overpowering the flowers. I think that's enough of that. So now we're going to go in with the yellow grays. And we're just going to do a few of these in there just to have a little extra color. So again, if your paints are drying up, I would activate them. They seem to not totally dry, but they kind of get thicker. This is that yellow gray 1, yellow gray 2, yellow gray 3, darkest one. Hardly putting any weight down with this grass or the dark one. Just some light lines. So the more you push down, the wider your grass will get. So I'm just going in and hardly pushing down with this one. All right. We can go in and put our stems in. I think I'm going to use the green gray number 2. And I'm not going to do the dot technique. Maybe I'll put a little green gray and yellow gray number 3 on the brush at the same time, which I do like so. So lots of water. Green gray down first. And then I'm going to go in and put a little bit of that on the tip of it. That's the yellow gray number 3. So then we're just going to not do super heavy. And we're going to bring our stems down. So that's a ton of pigment on there, you guys, which is okay, but it's too much for me. So I'm going to go in with a clean brush, wet, and I'm going to smudge that down and it doesn't need to be perfect, just to soften it a bit. That's a lot of pigment on there. You can soften this quite a bit. And then we can go in with our last one as well and soften that one a bit. Excellent. So far, that looks really good, you guys. I think that's awesome. Where we're at right now with the paint, you can kind of see the mixing ability well on the paper. It doesn't mix like you can see there's some line here and then a little bit of blooming over here. So the mixing of the paint colors isn't really strong in this style of painting, I will say. But you know, oh, down here, they do bloom pretty nice together. So it could just be the technique that I'm using with the dots. It could just be, you know, the quality of the paint, and then just the saturation of pigment in these paints. So there are some little areas, but to me, I think it kind of adds to the painting. So I overall think so far, I'm really liking these as a fun paint to play with and just to enjoy the colors. I think you can do a lot of different things with these. So that's going to do it for us using the paints thus far. So I'm going to take these and put them aside. Again, if you guys are interested in grabbing some of them, there is a discount code. I will put that in the show notes. So if you guys want, you can go into the description of this YouTube video and you can find the link and the code there and get yourself some of these paints. So next up, we are going to get our Micron Archival Ink 01 pen. So our grass isn't totally dry, but our flowers are pretty dry. So we can start working on our flower over here on the left-hand side. And we are going to do that line work I have been doing with the double line work. So we're going to do that starting over here. Just watch for wet paint if you're going to start working and it's not totally dry. So we're going to start off by doing this petal here, coming up, coming around onto this side one over here. And you just want to put down a couple of lines. Just like so. We can go put a little bit of line up the center if we so choose. If you don't want to add any line, as I always say, don't add any if you don't want to add any. No problem there. So we'll work on this flower over here, starting in the middle. The more loose you can hold your pen, the more flow you will likely have. Just like that. And then up in the top here, last one. Tex is back inside, so as you can hear, he's rooting around. Awesome. And now we're going to work on our very last flower down here for our line work and go around those ones there. Those look really good. Lovely. Those look really great. So we can come down into our stem part. Hey, bud. Hi there. And you know, we could do the same with a couple of these stones. You could kind of go around, and I'm not going to go and do over top of every single piece of grass. We can leave those in the background. Just the same, they look really good like that. So as I said earlier, we're going to be using the Winsor Newton Gold ink. These ones settle really, really well, so you got to give it a good shake up. These I got at Michael's as well. Okay, so we're going to finish off this in the way that I love to, with adding a little bit of the gold detail with our, I didn't say this in the beginning, our 10-0 Aqua Elite liner brush. Tex chewed the end off this one. I do have another one in here somewhere. This is just the first one that I grabbed, so we're going to use it. So as I said, these settle quite a bit, so you're going to have to dip down pretty far into your ink. This is a calligraphy ink. So what we've been doing in the past and what I've started to do with these is go around and add some highlights into some of these little areas where there's little pockets that we can just add in some of that highlighting. Look at how beautiful that one is. I do love this Winsor Newton Gold. It's got its time and place. And in these ones with the muted color, the muted paint, I think that these are this gold of Winsor Newton ink is perfect. So I do love painting crocuses because they are one of my favorite spring flowers that do grow wild here in Saskatchewan. So I've painted quite a few of them. So for this highlight part, we're just adding a few little highlights. We're not totally filling in all those spots, just a few of them. If you don't love this part, you don't think it needs it, you're happy just the way that it is, as I always say, just forgo the parts that you don't think are necessary. Because I have had a few people comment saying that they think it's better without, and my answer always is, then stop while you're ahead and don't add in the ink detail if you don't love it. That's the nice thing about art. You can do what you like. So, but I appreciate the feedback always, so let me know your thoughts, and it's probably not going to change my style, but let me know what your thoughts are. That's all good. So I'm just going to carry on, you guys, right now and fill in the little spots here. This takes a couple minutes, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to speed this up. I have finished up doing my highlights, and this is the one part in the last video that I did that I forgot, and I kind of tried to explain what to do after. But what I want you guys to see here is, so I've gone over some of the black lines with some of that metallic ink, and so what I'm going to do is go back over them, but I'm not making any new lines. I'm just going back over what I already have there, so that you can see that black line as opposed to it being covered up by the metallic, because the metallic is highly concentrated as well, that it does just mute out those black lines. So that's what I'm going over and doing quickly here. So yeah, you can just go around and touch those up. The very last thing that I always love to do with my paintings is add splatter, and that's not for everybody, I know, but it is for me. So I'm going to reshake up my gold here because it has settled quite a bit. I'm going to get out my number 1 script brush, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to get a bunch on the end of it, like get a good glob. As I always do, I like to concentrate a lot in the center and then a lot of blobs in the center and then splatter as I go out. So I'll show you here with this one. Quite a bit in the center. Big ones, big ones, big ones. And then we splatter outward. And I have decided that the reason I like this is because it reminds me of the pollen you see splattered on flowers when a pollinator has been in there. So that's why I do it. All right, you guys, that is going to do it for that painting. Well, friends, that is going to do it for the Fuumuui watercolor tutorial and review. What I will say about the paints, they are fun. I'm not going to lie. I enjoy them. I'm probably going to use them quite a bit. I enjoy the fun colors. I enjoy the fact that they are muted. I think you can do a lot of different moody type pieces with this. So if you are somebody that paints not just florals, you paint a lot of different subjects, this paint is wonderful for practicing, for having fun, for just enjoying the joys of watercolor and the color of the pigment. So I would absolutely recommend them for somebody who is just into watercolor as a hobby artist, as a learning artist such as myself, and for somebody that just wants to enjoy different color pigments and different color watercolor paints. So absolutely excited about these. Can't wait to paint a little bit more with them. I truly, truly have really enjoyed all the different colors that come in this palette. So as I said before, you guys can get yourself 10% off if you enjoyed the tutorial and would like to try them by using this link below and the code BLOOMS. I will also have that in the description of the video. So if you guys didn't catch that, you can head to the description of the video and check it all out. I will list everything that I've used on there. I will have the link for the watercolor paints, everything you could possibly need, and more in the description. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next tutorial.